Hello everyone and welcome to our second blog or vlog about our little project Autoconquest. It's a Unity project and it aims at combining game features of Heroes of Might and Magic as well as auto chess. And the idea was to start out with the, I guess, most important element of all of this, aside from the combat maybe, which would be the world map. And in the last video, I've shown you that we used some online tutorials and learned a little bit about tile palettes and the new Unity tile map feature. You can see here we have our tile palette. So we used some assets which you can download. And yeah, the difference to the last time is that we switched away from an isometric view to a two-dimensional hexagonal view. And the reason for that is that I really didn't like the isometric assets, so to say, because I believe if you use isometric assets, you're kind of stuck in this blocky aesthetic, and we want to go for more into an art direction of dark fantasy and nothing for children. I mean, maybe children will play it, but yeah, it's more suited for adults. And I think if you have this blocky aesthetic, this does not really fit together with isometric aesthetics. And yeah, so the idea would be to create a flat map. And then there was another question if we should use hexagonal tiles or square tiles. And I really don't like square tiles because, I mean, if you think about that you put a layer on top of this map, it doesn't really, and then you paint on it. It doesn't really matter if you have hexagonal tiles or if you have square tiles. But still, in terms of movement, you won't be able, for instance, if here's a monster and your player is here, or your player is here, you cannot attack the monster from the diagonal. So just to sum it up, I think square tiles are not on par to hexagonal tiles. I really like hexagonal tiles that you, for instance, can surround someone, or that you maybe can create a structure which has like 3 tiles right here, like a pyramid, stuff like that. So yeah, so the decision was taken that we want to have a hexagonal two-dimensional map, and then we have to see if we, like I said, put a layer on top of that, paint it, or that we maybe create each tile individually, which would be much more demanding in terms of graphics. But if you just think about it, if we hand paint everything, then we have this one campaign, and we won't be able to procedurally generate the map. If we want to have procedural generation of the map, then you have high replayability. Then a player can play the game over and over again and tweak the generation parameters like amount of islands, or if you want to play on a Pangea or on continents, or the size of the map. But then, of course, if you do a procedure generated map, then you cannot use this technique where you just put a layer on top of everything and hand paint it, which would be much easier. Okay, but for both systems, what we will have is we will have a map, and you can see we've already made this to work, so you can run around right here. And then you will have blockers on the map, like the mountains. Okay, you can see I cannot pass through the mountains. I can also not pass through the ocean. That's everything like intended. But what is not like intended is that we are at the moment moving around with the keyboard. And on a hexagonal map, there is no up and no down key. There is only a left or a right key, and to cycle like diagonally, I have to press both keys at the same moment. And that's not something which feels good. And in general, I have to say, in most games, you use the keyboard to move around the camera. And here the camera is actually fixed to the player. You see here the camera is a child of the player. So what I would really like to have is, and I told it in the last video series as well, that when you select the player and you, for instance, click right here, here's a monster and you want to fight it, then you cannot go this direct way, but you have to have an algorithm which is smart enough to lead the player along this path and to attack the monster. And there should be other scenarios as well. For instance, if you have, I'm not sure if I can paint right now. Let's see if this works. Oh, I have to do it like this maybe. For instance, you see if I have snow right here. Let's go back to here. I hope it works. Okay, you see, if I have snow right here, hypothetically, I could enter the snow, but maybe the snow would have a higher coast. It would have a movement cost of 5, while when I walk on grass, I only have a movement cost of 1. And then if I want to go here, the shortest way would of course be this way here, through the snow, but it has a higher cost. So either I can go this way, or I can go this way, but this would be too expensive. And an algorithm which works for that is A-star. A-star is a pathfinding algorithm, and you can also use it, for instance, if you have a monster and you want to do an artificial intelligence, and these monsters, the monsters here wants to attack me, also in real-time applications, not only if you work turn-based. If it wants to attack you, it needs to know the fastest way. And maybe then you want that it runs around here. And for that you would use something like A-star. The problem is, with the current setup, I really didn't find any. There are countless A-star tutorials. You can actually see this right here. You see countless of videos about Unity and A-star, but what I struggle to find is A-star in a hexagonal setting, and especially utilizing like these predefined tile maps which you have from Unity. And I mean, I think it, of course, there would be ways to do this, but I feel like we don't know a lot about this tile map system from Unity. So at the moment, I think it would probably be better to create something from scratch and don't use these predefined things which make game creation very fast, but then you're kind of limited if you want to go beyond like the easy stuff, like for instance integrating pathfinding. But of course, and I tell it to you right now, we redid everything, so we put everything which we did so far into the garbage bin. So not that it was bad that we did that, this was a learning experience, but we started all over again. Just one thing I want to show you is that, of course, we can take with us some experiences. For instance, we also implemented a fog of war system. Let's see, I think I disabled the fog of war, because if you see it right here, you see only fog. But if we start the game, then you see the fog of war system works. And I think even if we switch now to another system, we can take this fog of war stuff with us. And it's kind of, the system is kind of cool. I don't want to go into too much detail, but you see we have a script right here. And we have, I think it's a public variable, so we can change the parameter. So at the moment, you have like a reach of 2 in terms of fog of war. And just imagine if you find an artifact which gives you more vision, then this parameter just has to be tuned from 2 away to 3. So this is something I would like conserve and use within what we switch to now. Because I told you I kind of struggled with finding a good video or a good tutorial in the internet, and at the moment we have to do everything based on tutorials. We have to learn it. We are starting from zero. And so I was very frustrated. I watched all these videos. It took me about 6 or 7 hours, and every time at one point I was saying like, no, this doesn't really work. It uses square tiles. I want something with hexagonal tiles. Or then I found something which with hexagonal tiles, and then I was like, no, but it uses not the tile map system of Unity. And actually, you see, I found a series here by Quill18 Creates, and I followed the, you see it's a tutorial series of 27 videos, and what he actually does is he creates a civilization game engine. And that's actually, if you think about it, this is kind of cool, because if you follow these tutorials, you will really know about what this engine does. And I can show you how far I've come yet. So this is another project. And if I start, we can currently procedurally generate a hex tile map. And this is completely different to what we did before, because these hex tiles are not using the Unity predefined assets and the integrated tools, but we created all this from scratch based on the tutorial of this YouTuber. And yeah, so actually you see like here, this hex map is composed of 3D models. So every hex tile is a 3D model, so we're not really in the domain of two-dimensional space, but we're actually in the domain of three-dimensional space. And at the moment, what I can do so far is I can randomly generate a map. And another feature which we also have is that we have, let's switch to the main camera. If you maybe you know it from Civilization, so we have vertical wrapping. So if you, for instance, travel along this axis and then at some point you come here out again, and then basically the camera is always following. So this is vertical wrapping. You could also do horizontal wrapping, but if you watch the video of what's his name again, of Quill18 Creates, then you will figure out that horizontal wrapping, I hope I don't confuse the terms, does not really make that much sense. Okay, so that's what we have, but what you also see right here are the coordinates. You see the coordinates are actually models as well, or at least they are a text mesh. And so now what we have in comparison to the old system is that we can index these tiles. And just to give you, of course, if you would have a square map, the top left square would be 0, 0. You would have a two-dimensional array, and you would put the tiles there, and it would be at the location 0, 0. And now, actually, with hexagonal maps, it works kind of similar. You also only need a two-dimensional array, or let's say you only need two coordinates, x and y, but they are a bit different, because you see right here, the rows are the same. Okay, so the x-axis works the same, 48, 49, 50. But if you see then the columns, they are always a little bit different. So they are like this. But if you do it like that, then your tile actually works out. And then you are now able, with the engine which we have so far, or the system which we have set up so far, you're able to select an individual tile and to do stuff with this tile. And of course this would work with the Unity tile map as well, with the predefined system, but I think it is, for me at least, it is much easier to do something like that from scratch, because now I can understand what we did, how we did it so far, and you see it involved much more programming. That's why following these tutorials takes so long. For a half an hour video, usually it takes me 2.5 hours, and I watched 6 so far of the 27. And yeah, so far we didn't go beyond map generation. And map generation for me is not that important at the moment, because at the moment I actually want to have one big world, more similar to Heroes of Might and Magic. I'm not sure if random map generation will work out that easy for such a game. And that's actually what I'm not interested. But since I'm following this series, I can actually just stick to the source code and just deactivate this functionality, because I just know where you can deactivate it. That's the cool thing about learning stuff. And what I really like about this series is that it's much more than generating this world. It also includes A-star, like I said. So I think in the next couple of tutorials, the A-star algorithm will be discussed. So it will be discussed how you can put a player into the world map and then move them around with A-star. And actually exactly with the system that you, for instance, press right click right here, and then the player moves around the objects to the desired location. And I think he also has some event some event logic built into this, let's call it, engine. So everything which I want. But of course, what this means is that so my focus at the moment is within learning. So you won't see me progress with the gaming code all the time, but it's more like I can just tell you what I learned so far and how I can adapt it to use it in the game. Now, in terms of the progress in the game, I think aside from all this coding and learning, we've created a little background story, and so far everyone I told the story said it's kind of cool, better than they would expect. Because what I really would like to have is that everything within the world kind of makes sense. For instance, you will meet undeads, okay, and demons. So I told you it's like dark fantasy centered, and they should not just be random entities giving the player a hard time, but they should have a purpose. There should be a backstory why they are there. And I think with the current story, there is a reason why they are there. And yeah, I don't want to spoil too much, and maybe some things will change about that. So just telling that in parallel to learning everything which we need, I guess, I try to at least work a little bit on a story, and maybe I will also work a little bit on the world map, at least for the campaign, which how I envision it, and then maybe do some graphics and planning in terms of, for instance, how the interfaces work. I told you we want to integrate auto chess, so I think we have to paint all the interfaces, and I think this is something which you could do in parallel. I don't want to do it exclusively. Today I talked to a friend and he was like, yeah, maybe you should start such a program, such a project and plan everything. But I think the danger of planning everything is that you overplan, and then the only thing which you do is only planning anymore, and you don't do anything else aside from that. And I just want to have a balance. I want to have like 70% at least. I want to work and keep going, pushing the program code, and the other 30% I want to use to create maybe some assets, graphics, writing story, so that you don't get stuck. That you don't get stuck with the one thing and don't get stuck with the other thing. And just that you know, my goal would be that we create a Kickstarter and we get some financial help. I hope this works out. If not, it will stay a free time project in parallel to our work, which would be really hard. But if we could push this project and maybe create a little demo with at least a couple of graphic assets, and then if we could get a little bit of funding and survive based on this project for maybe like 2 years, then I would quit. I'm not allowed to say that, but maybe I would reduce my real job and to commit a little bit more. At the moment, we have Corona, so it's easy to commit a little bit of my free time into this project. Actually, a little bit. It's at the moment it's a lot of my free time, but yeah, I think if you really want to push this to work out, and I don't want to get bankrupt, so I have to do it in my free time. But the priority for me would be to push it toward something which you can show, something which kind of works with a vision what you want to achieve, and then do a Kickstarter, and hopefully we'll have a little community which supports the project. And yeah, that's the plan so far. And I'm not sure if we should spoil about the story. I mean, I would like to tell the story. I think it's kind of cool, but maybe not yet. Maybe not yet, or maybe not until it's done. Maybe we should spoil it, so it would create some hype. Yeah, but not in this developer blog. Okay, that's it. And I hope the next time I can show you the ASTER algorithm working. Goodbye.